Let's bring in former FDA Associate Commissioner Peter Pitts to talk about not only what to expect this fall, but also the viability of Russia's vaccine claims this morning. Good morning, Peter. Thank you for joining us. Obviously a huge headline, but there's a bit of vaccine nationalism going around. What do we know scientifically about this candidate that Russia has announced?
Well, that's a complicated question because what we know is exactly nothing. You know, it's less of a vaccine than a molotov cocktail kind of thrown into the COVID-19 conversation. No data, no science, no backup. There's no record whatsoever in the WHO database of any Russian vaccine program. There's no such thing as the Russian FDA. There's a history of approving substandard and counterfeit products, very little oversight. So my confidence level is exactly zero at the moment.
Wow. All right. So no question about that. I guess it's not comforting that Putin gave it to his daughter to take and that they're starting to give it to healthcare workers.
Well, you know, maybe he gave it to his daughter, maybe he didn't. I mean, ultimately, like Churchill said, this is a riddle, you know, wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma. It's kind of a classic Russian move. This is the same country that's been accused plausibly, to my mind, of hacking into Western databases to try to steal vaccine scientific development. So it's hard to say exactly what's real and what's not. But I think a great deal of caution is called for these days beyond the headlines.
Well, Peter, back to the world of science, which I mean, well, in this country, at least parts of it, we are advancing and companies are advancing on a vaccine. Where do you think things stand? When do you believe that we will see a commercially available vaccine from a reputable manufacturer / company / government?
I'm pretty optimistic that we'll have a vaccine, or actually more than one vaccine, quite likely, in early 21, February, March. I hope it's earlier, but that's my bet at the moment. And the reason that I think it's so important that we place our bets on kind of the larger multinational companies is that not only do they have good science, clearly you need that to get the vaccine done, but they also have the manufacturing chops to make sure that it's done to scale on a global level. So I'm pretty optimistic because a lot of these programs are done by major players and they're making very good progress.
And Peter, to the question of reopening schools or not, how are districts in your mind making this calculus? Is it correct? What are the major risks right now based on what we know about transmission levels and whether we're going to generally expect another surge perhaps in the indoor weather season?
Well, I think that, you know, the danger here isn't so much for students because, you know, whether you're 8 or 18, you know, the younger you are, the less likely you are to have serious complications or to have any manifestations at all. That's the asymptomatic population. I think we've got to protect the people that work in the schools, the teachers, the principals, you know, all the school employees. And again, that's why it's important to test on a regular basis. And also why we need to hold out to make sure that teachers are among the first people to get vaccinated once we have a vaccine for general use.
Yeah, on the vaccine question, you know, clearly you have zero confidence in Russia's announcement today, Peter, and we have much, I would say, more vigorous protocols here at the FDA. You worked there. There is this question going around, though, about whether these vaccines are being rushed, say, whether it's around the election or just to get it fast. I mean, we need it. We desperately need it to get our economy and our society back online. Do you have any questions about the speed at which this is happening and whether corners are being cut?
Well, you know, there's a difference between rushing and expediting. You know, when you rush, you cut corners, you make mistakes, and that's not acceptable either on a developmental level or on a regulatory level. When you expedite, what you do is you put your best brains against the task at hand. And that's certainly what's happening inside the FDA. It's all systems focused on COVID-19 therapeutics and vaccines. And I'm entirely convinced that it is going to be done robustly, appropriately, and that when a vaccine gets approved by the FDA, the American public can be absolutely assured that it's safe and effective. And that's so important because there's no value in having an FDA-approved vaccine if people don't want to get it. I see numbers that say 30% of the population won't get a vaccine once it's ready. That's not acceptable. We need a huge public education campaign. But I think step one is confidence in the public health system. And unfortunately, that's an issue we've really got to discuss. There's some hard truths we've got to address and fix those problems.
Yeah, well, one other problem has been testing, which has dogged us since the very beginning of the spread of the virus in this country, Peter. To Mike's point, schools are going to be reopening. Many colleges, universities as well. They're going to be reliant on a lot of testing. That's kind of part of their strategy to keep themselves open and have students on campus. Is there going to be enough testing out there and fast enough to actually allow all these schools to do what they want?
Well, there's never enough testing, and it's never fast enough. Clearly, we're developing new tests all the time. They're never 100% perfect. What we need are tests that are highly accurate, that can be turned around very quickly. And I think that we're getting there very quickly. So I would suspect that by Labor Day, we'll have a very large supply of more accurate tests that can give us results immediately or in a few hours. And that's what we're going to need, because whether you're going back to work or whether you're going back to school, test, 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 test. It's the mantra we've got to follow.